If you celebrate Christmas, or even if you don't, you need to watch this video so that you can recognize the pattern behind Christmas. There's a new trend that's showing the dark reality of Christmas. This reality was always there. It's just that people were willfully blind to it, or even acknowledged it, but still didn't want to change it because they wanted to justify what they were experiencing. But this new trend is shedding a new light on what is actually going on with Christmas. The new trend is this. You may have seen some videos of the Grinch making an appearance at Christmas. So the Grinch will show up at the door and bust down the door or run down the stairs, or somehow they'll make an entrance, make an appearance. And what you immediately see is the kids who are watching this will get scared, they'll scream, they'll hide, they'll start to cry. It has a visible impact. And from a certain perspective, there is this entertaining thing to watch of the Grinch running up, shaking the tree, grabbing some gifts, running out, scaring kids. But this is actually showing the reality of what is behind Christmas. Like, if you think about that, it's pretty messed up. It's pretty abusive to have someone come in dressed as the Grinch, literally to scare your kids and get a reaction out of them. It's kind of messed up because you're really creating a trauma for that child. But that's actually what Christmas is about. If you flip it, you're creating a character that's not real and pretending that they are real so that you can get some energy out of watching the child's reaction. This is actually showing an even bigger problem within our society at large. That bigger problem being that, well, okay, yes, we have this issue with Christmas, but the issue behind Christmas is that you're dumbing your kids down. You're dumbing your kids down to the point where you're not teaching them things that they should know. It would be like this. I'm not gonna teach my kid what 1 + 1 is because they'll eventually figure it out. I'll wait till they figure it out. Or I'm not gonna teach my kids how to read or to recognize letters or recognize colors. I'll wait till they figure it out. That's pretty messed up because the reality is your kid's not gonna figure it out unless you teach it to them, unless you expose it to them. And so in the same way, Christmas is doing that as well, where you're just waiting for them to figure out that you're lying to them, essentially, or that there's no logic to what you're saying. But you're not supporting them to understand it's a joke or it's pretend. You're just pretending as if it's real and then expecting that they're somehow going to reason it out. This is what's happening in our society. Parents are just kind of expecting that their kids are just going to know things. They're just going to learn them, or that their kids are going to teach them. The reality is the kids aren't going to know very many things unless you teach them, unless you show them, unless you give them a very good input, unless you give them the ability to work things out logically for themselves on their own. They're not going to be able to do that on their own. They're not going to have a good output. They're not going to be able to take information in and do something constructive with it. And so Christmas is just a symptom of the larger reality that we're participating in as a society. We're not actually taking responsibility for our children and kind of leaving it up to where the wind blows. They'll figure it out eventually. And sure, a lot of kids do end up figuring it out eventually, but think about this. If a child never figured it out because you, let's say, isolated them from everyone else and they never saw any signs otherwise, at a certain point, you'd start to think, this kid's kind of dumb. If they became an adult and they still believed in Santa, you'd be like, oh, you're not that bright. Like, that's the funny thing about Elf, isn't it? That movie. It's like everyone's like, oh, this guy's weird. Like, why is he pretending to believe in sin? Oh, he actually believes it? Like, poor guy, that's off. That's really off. That's what makes that movie so funny. But no one ever takes it back to, okay, we're doing this to kids, and you're just sort of expecting that at a certain point, they're gonna catch on. Maybe somebody at school tells them, or one of your family members or friends, or they hear something, or they watch something on the television or whatever. Instead of taking the responsibility to say, none of this is real. At what point do you stop the facade, stop the lying, and actually be real with them? And if you actually just consider it, you don't have to lie about holidays. You can still have fun with traditions without having to lie about it. You can say, hey, Santa Claus is a made-up character, and this is how people pretend with Santa. And here are some of the things that parents will tell their kids, but it's not real. But we can pretend if you want to pretend. We can play a game. Have you ever sat with a kid and pretended that you were a made-up character? They love it. They get so much joy out of it. They know you're pretending. And even later they'll ask, hey, can we play pretend again? Where you're this character or that character, whatever, right? You can pretend and still have fun. But we have a society where abuse, or the excuse, is made for abuse. We can stop that. We don't have to continue doing that. It's kind of like there was this idea a few generations ago where the idea was you should let your kids cry it out. And that idea spread, and a lot of parents started doing that. They let their kids cry it out. Well, research shows that that is not very supportive for your children. In fact, it creates a lot of trauma for your child because they don't learn to self-soothe that way. And so now a lot of parents are realizing, oh, I made a mistake. And now people are starting to catch on where I'm not going to let my child cry it out today. When are we going to stop lying to our kids? When are we going to stop allowing them to be dumbed down by us? By lying to your kids, telling them about Santa Claus, you're allowing them to be dumbed down. You are dumbing them down. By putting your kids in school, you're allowing them to be dumbed down. I'm not saying they don't need education. If you go back and look at any of my past videos, you can see that is totally not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, though, is they need the best education, and they're not going to get that at school. If you look at society, if you look at your child and you want your child to actually be intelligent, to make intelligent decisions for themselves, ones that are just reasonable. I'm not saying that they have to be super genius, although they could be, but if you want them to have the best chances at this life, making the best choices for themselves, and being around other kids who are super intelligent, who can make really intelligent decisions, not just for themselves, but considering others as well, so that together they can solve bigger problems and we can have a happier life all together. You really need to consider how you're raising your kids and how these seemingly significant things are impacting them. If you haven't already, and you want to be a part of a community where there are parents who are raising their kids to be really intelligent, and they're doing everything that they can to make the environment, make this world the best it can possibly be, so that when the next generations come, they have the best opportunities and they can make the most of their lives. You need to send me a message that just says community, and I'll hook you up with some of the best communities that I've ever seen. In fact, we have a community right now where people have found relationships, gotten married, had kids, fixed their relationships, made business deals, business partnerships that have grown and become very successful, had genius children. We have a group where the foremost focus is to create ourselves and our environment, this world, to be the very best that we can be. Reach out, send me a message. If you want to be a part of that, we can make that happen. See ya.